Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of the Smart Money Show. My name is Noman and as usual I'm joined by Ali Suleiman. How's things going, bro?
I am good. I'm hot. We were just saying to our guest that we had to turn our fan off before filming because the mics are picking it up. So we're going to be sweltering for this episode, but it's all worth it. I'm also, deep in an internship.
How's that going?
It's good, to be honest. Really good. Long hours, but I'm enjoying it. Really, really enjoying it. But yeah, still have to make time for the podcast, of course. How are things with you?
All good, just getting started on those investment banking technicals. You must have heard of the 400 IB questions, or there's this one like really large book as well that I'm slowly going through. So that's been my main focus for these past couple of weeks, and I guess the next few months ahead. But anyways, we're here on a podcast episode. So who do we have on today?
Yeah, 100%. So very, very excited to welcome Agbolade Oduniyi onto the podcast. So bit of an introduction before we get on and what we're going to talk about. So Agbolade is a purpose-driven founder, an early careers advocate, and a strategy consultant all in one. He's the founder of FO Perspectives, a talent attraction and development company that connects employers with high potential and underrepresented early career talent. Through FO, he has built a national community of over 18,000 students and graduates, working with top firms such as Barclays all the way to Beazley to help young people secure roles across finance and consulting at JP Morgan, Deloitte, PwC, and much, much more, which we'll get onto. Before launching his own company, though, Agbolade began his career in asset management at Wellington Management, before pivoting into strategy consulting, where he has worked at firms including Accenture. Across all of his roles, a common thread has been empowering others, particularly students from diverse backgrounds, to break into competitive careers with clarity, confidence, and most importantly, community. In this episode, we speak directly to students like me and Noman, aspiring professionals, and hopefully future founders too. You will 100% leave with sharper insight into how to take ownership of your early career, from building networks and storytelling to navigating industry transitions and of also launching your very own platform. So we'll be covering Agbolade's personal journey, his move across sectors as I mentioned beforehand, the mission behind FO Perspectives, and the lessons he has learned from sitting on both sides of the hiring table. We also want to use this opportunity to extend thanks to one of our brand ambassadors, Ritesh Lal, who got us into contact with Agbolade and made this episode possible. But that was a very modest intro for our guest today. So without further ado, I'd love to welcome Agbolade onto the show. How are you?
Perfect. Thank you, Ali. I'm happy to be on today. Thanks for bringing me on and looking forward to hopefully will be quite a good, interesting, impactful discussion.
Yeah, no, 100%. And very, very excited because we're covering some topics that we don't usually cover as well. And from founder to founder, it's always great to have founder to co-founder, excuse me, Noman. I'm not trying to cut you out. Founder to co-founder. It's always great to have a conversation. But yeah, Noman, do you want to kick things off?
Yeah, so of course there's a lot of topics to talk about, but as usual, we normally kick off the episode by talking about the guest's background and early influences. So an open question to you, Agbolade. What was your upbringing like, and how did it shape your, I guess, ambitions?
Yeah, great question. Bit of trip down a memory lane here. So I'll probably say like I was heavily influenced by my dad. My dad's always been from young, big on education, big on like reading books, big on sort of learning. So from young, it sort of instilled in me in regards to that aspect of you know academically do well, obviously looking in regards to your career and sort of like shaping yourself up. So that's what meant that for me, lucky, I had a good role model in terms of my dad, but also my brothers who had gone through the early career scene, into graduate scheme. My second brother, he like into like Goldman Sachs, now works in a hedge fund. So like I had people above me who sort of like was really in that space. So that kind of naturally from young was sort of born into me. And I guess from that sort of like kind of links back to today in regards to I was fortunate enough to have that in my family that sort of role model to help me, or people who already been before me into these spaces. However, that's not the case for everyone. And I feel like our aim at FO Perspectives is to essentially be that sort of big brother to young talent from across the world, or across the UK, but hopefully across the world who sort of don't have that access to that network to kickstart their career. But yeah, I would say quite a learning driven environment. I'd say I was sort of brought up in.
Yeah. No, 100%. What a great first answer to kick it off. I'm even more excited now, to be honest. There's a lot of questions we could kick off around that answer, but I'm gonna go into so when did you first remember start thinking seriously about your career, and was finance always the direction you wanted to go in?
Yeah, great question. I think yes. I think probably yes. I first started around 16, so GCSE time. So my secondary school, fortunate enough for it, they were really good on sort of like making sure we get work experience, and they made us do a test to sort of know what career would be good for you. Like an hour long test, which I did right. And at the end of it, they sort of like ranked what I'd be good at, and obviously finance came up in it, which kind of made sense because obviously for my brother and then for my dad, sort of interested in that space, and then did economics at GCSE as well, which I really enjoyed. So I thought, okay, finance is something I really want to get into. And then that same summer, I did a week long work experience in Canary Wharf at Thomson Reuters, which was for me personally my first sort of foray into like the financial world, and sort of like at 16 going to Canary Wharf was like, wow, like this is sort of like the pinnacle of the banking industry in the UK, let alone probably Europe. So yeah, that was probably the starting point, I would say. And then from there, it just sort of always piqued my interest. So throughout 6 months as well, making sure I was doing work experience programs. So I spent a bit of time at Soc General doing a bit of work experience there, and at Lloyd's Banking Group. So I was just from young always sort of interested in that, piqued my interest. And then my natural skill set as well, I felt like kind of suited towards that in regards to being quite analytical, being quite good with sort of pulling out insights of data, and I feel that sort of linked towards that. But yeah, that's probably why I say it started initially and then just grew over time.
Now, for sure, and you've had so many early careers experiences, which we're going to get into, I assure you. But Noman, do you remember just when you spoke about Canary Wharf, Agbolade? Do you remember our first?
I was going to speak about that as well. Yeah, it was like I think back in now. Well, I mean, we were in year. It was our year 12 summer, so
Yeah.
a good like 3-4 years ago now. But yeah, we went to Canary, me and him, and it was just eye opening because like we're not from London. We're from this city like 2 hours north called Peterborough, and it's just like you don't get to see finance up front. And when we went there, it was like inspiring on a different level. It was just like I guess we didn't know what investment banking was, or we didn't know what asset management was, but or any role in finance. We didn't really understand where it was, but we know that we wanted to work in that field. So yeah, it's a genuine eye opener, and of course, getting your hands getting your hands dirty and working directly in that field must have been eye opening for you, Agbolade. But I guess like another very important part of your early career would be your university life. So could you talk about that? How was that, and how did that shape your, I guess, direction in finance?
Yeah, it's really good. Yeah, so I guess I went to the University of Nottingham. I studied economics and politics. It's quite funny. So and it was my first choice. I actually then for my A levels kind of flunked it. So then I was like, oh damn, might not have made it for that. And then I luckily got remarked and then was unable to get in. But when I was able to get in, I wasn't getting in my straight economics course. I had to do economics and politics, which actually I wasn't too fussed about because I did politics at A level. But yeah, my time there was really great. In terms of why I would say it's probably a really good uni compared to like your sort of top LSEs, Imperial, Warwick, Oxbridge, is that you have a lot of smart people there, sort of top uni. Also, it's not as intense as those universities, so it's a really good work-life balance between obviously making sure you are on it when it comes to academics, but then also making sure you enjoyed fun. So I played rugby there, got involved in my church out there, like had a good balance there, while also at the same time being on it when it came to academics. Funny enough, I would say is that my first year I probably wasn't on there at all, despite obviously from 16 to 18 being quite sort of laser focused. So I didn't apply for any spring weeks in my first year. I don't know why I didn't. I was probably just wasn't really focused. But luckily enough, what I did do, which is often I'll go into quite later, and also links back to Epic Perspectives, that I networked. And I was fortunate enough to sort of have, through my own network within my church, but also my dad as well, able to start speaking to people who worked in the city, and then sort of been able to like just get a couple of days experience here and there. And it was actually my end of first year. So with BlackRock, I wanted to spend a few days there, sort of like just shadowing. So I reached out to people that worked there, got a response. Funny enough, within that team, the person who works in that team was a mutual of someone from my church, which I only really found out because through conversation. And they're like, we can come and spend a few days here to sort of see what it's like. However, in my head, I knew I wanted a summer internship there. So I started doing an interview to sort of get it because it was a formalized sort of spring week there. So I did that there, got in, passed the interview. I was around a few different areas, so client portfolio solutions, around a few other areas. So looking at sort of client portfolios, how can you optimize it? How can you sort of like hedge it against regards to different scenarios? A lot of scenario testing in regards to asset allocation optimization. However, I spent a week there, was great, sort of like getting to meet people, but I actually was able to sort of spend up to 6 weeks there. Reason why was that I was really, really tactical and sort of just making sure that I was on it when it came to sort of networking, getting to know people. And then from there, I asked them, can I stay a bit longer? And 1 week turned to 2, which turned to 3, which sort of turned into a full 6 weeks there, which was really, really fun. But I would say my first year at university probably wasn't the most active as it should have been. However, second year and third year, I was really on it. So second year and third year. So second year, I did the summer internship at KPMG. So I think we all know what it's like second year, right? From September, we're applying for our graduate schemes, like also for our summer internship. So for me, I had a really big focus on making sure that I don't um, put myself into one area. So not just finance. I thought, let me try out consulting, see what I actually like, see what I don't like. Fortunately, I did KPMG second year, and then my final year I did insurance. Willis Towers Watson again. I thought I was like, I've done finance, I've done consulting. Let's try insurance. So yeah, had a bit of variety in regards to my experience at university.
Yeah. No, 100%. And that it's a great segue onto our next question, which is your career journey through finance. And our first question on that was, talk us through your 3 internships in 3 years. I mean, it's almost unheard of, right? You said BlackRock, KPMG, and WTW, I believe. One of our head of equities, Dylan, is interning at WTW as well, and I'm in insurance right now. It's insurance is actually super overlooked, just on a tangent. Not a lot of people think about that. It's always just kind of IB asset management, but insurance is great. There's a lot of progression in insurance, and it's interesting to me anyway. Obviously, I'm going to say that I'm biased.
I mean, if you really think about it, I did an essay recently because of my uni on insurance, and everything gets insured, and so I think people underestimate the size it plays within the wider financial services industry. Yeah.
Oh, 1,000,000%. But anyway, let's get back on topic. This is about you, Agbolade. So I wanted to ask, so you mentioned about the internships and how they were different and also how they were similar as well. But how did your perception of, okay, I want a career in finance, this is what it's going to be like, how did that perception evolve across those 3 internships, across your 3 years at university?
Yeah, pretty good question. So I guess after doing my first year at BlackRock, I really got down the rabbit hole when it comes to sort of asset management. I really got interested in sort of understand how markets work. Funny enough, kind of moment, I started FA Perspectives in my second year after my summer internship. Initially, it was actually a blog. So it's funny, people always didn't know this. It was actually initially a finance blog. The original website is still up on WordPress. So people will go into it now, you would see all my articles. I used to write articles in regards to IPOs, in regards to financial markets, in regards to what's happening in the economy. And I was naturally did it for fun. I used to write about it after that. So that sort of really piqued my interest. However, I knew that, okay, I like asset management, but I don't want to sort of beef it. Okay, asset management, that's it. Let's explore what's out there. So I was really particular on making sure I tried different industries. So obviously fortunate enough to get consulting someone into like KPMG, which is really great. I actually did that one abroad. So I did that actually in Nigeria in the Lagos headquarters. That was really a fun experience. I wanted to work abroad. I thought like, you know what, I'm only gonna get a chance to do something abroad. Fortunate enough, I have family that I was able to sort of stay there. And talking to the UK office, they were able to sort of help me transfer over to the Lagos office, which was really helpful. So that was really good. And then final year, Willis Towers Watson again. That one was actually quite funny how I came out that one. So and I want to say it's the importance of having advocates in the workplace for diverse, underrepresented talent. So I wouldn't say that. Obviously, I come from a minority background, but I was fortunate enough to do a right in life. That I went to a private school to just be transparent. So I did a right from year 7 to year 11, year 12. But one thing I would say is that, especially with insurance, there's a lack of a lack of representation. When I went to a Bright Network event in my final year, I met a recruiter that he worked at Willis Towers Watson. He was also a black guy, and we just sort of started to kick it off. And I actually sort of took me under his wing in regards to asking me what I wanted to get into. And funny enough, took his details. That was in September. In January, he messaged me saying, "Why you want to apply for the program?" I thought, why not? Give me advice. Give me a bit of advice how to apply for it. And then 2 months later, I got an offer for summer internship. And that sort of advice in regards to having someone there who's able to advocate for you, which sort of actually probably start of why I'd say my journey into early careers, where I wanted to advocate for underrepresented talent to sort of be able to break into these sort of industries is really important. But to sort of wrap it up, yeah, I think just doing different internships is really good for me because it broadened my skill set, number one. It made me sort of know what I like and what I don't like. And overall, it's made me a lot more well-rounded person, I would say, across my university experience.
Yeah. Oh, 1,000,000%. I mean, we talk about it all the time, and of course, it's from a student perspective. But even hearing from yourself and our previous professional guests at the same time, just experience is the best. Whatever you're in, don't put, as you said, rabbit hole. Don't put yourself. Don't be tunnel vision that I want to get into asset management. I'm only going to do an internship in asset management. Don't. You never know. Just because you like it now, it's because you haven't got experience with something else, etc., etc. We can go down that. But I did want to ask a very quick question. You mentioned that you went to private school. We've had a few messages from our listeners that say they believe they can't get into those elite careers because they didn't go to private school. What's your take on that?
Um, I think it's complex. I don't think it's a straight black and white answer. So while obviously there's the benefits of private school in terms of your network and stuff, I think what we're seeing increasingly now is that it is not as important as it used to be in terms of you don't have to go to a private school. What I would say the bigger issue is less private school, more I guess the university that people go to. I think while companies have been a lot more open in regards to a more diverse set of universities in which they take their interns from, it is still quite overwhelmingly from a select few what they call their target schools, right? So I think that's probably more of an issue than necessarily going to a private school. Obviously, private school will help you get into the top universities, but it's not always the case in that regards. But it definitely does have its benefits in helping you break in. I would say the key benefit for me was sort of, as I mentioned before earlier, at 16, doing that test that they paid for me to do, right? Sort of helped me open the door in regards to what actually would work for me. And I sort of started my interest into finance. And obviously did that with 1 week at Thomson Reuters. Again, they sort of really helped with that as well, alongside my dad in sort of finding that opportunity. But what I would say to students, and I speak to students every day, I've spoken to hundreds and hundreds of students, is that don't let your background be a hindrance to you. In fact, try and use it as your unique selling point, right? You have your own unique experiences, which makes you a unique person, which has a unique point of view, unique way of thinking, and turn it into a strength for yourself.
Yeah, I think that is like great and direct advice for a lot of our viewers and listeners because, like in certain cases, I was speaking to a few people at Springs and they got overwhelmed when, say, they're from like a state school and they're speaking to someone who's competing for the same job but's from Eton. It was like they were getting a lot of imposter syndrome, but at the end of the day, it's what you make out of your own experiences that can push you forward into the next stages of your career, isn't it? But
Yeah. Sorry, just to touch on that. It's a really good question in regards to imposter syndrome, and that's a really good point. I would say, because obviously, while building other perspectives and working with students, to help them sort of connect them to employers, the biggest issue I see when sort of helping underrepresented talent break in is that imposter syndrome, in thinking that they deserve to be there. Because of them haven't seen themselves there before, so it's like, do we deserve to be in this environment? However, as they sort of see quite quickly, is that they're more than deserving to be in that environment. They have the ability, potential. It's just giving them that opportunity to essentially destroy that imposter syndrome.
mhm. No, 100%. I couldn't have said it better myself. But I guess kind of moving back towards like your journey through finance. Then now, of course, you made the pivot from AM to consulting, didn't you? So could you just talk about that and like what
Yeah,
made that happen?
yeah, sure. So
Mhm.
obviously after university, I'd done 3 internships. I was sort of in a place where, okay, what do I actually want to do? I wanted a bit of time to actually understand what did I really want to do. And at that time, I'll probably say, you know what, having tried different industries, I felt like what I would enjoy the most was asset management, just due to my interest, due to my skill set. What I've done. So I graduated in September 2019, then started applying for roles, right? So I'll probably start from then and have asset management. So I thought, okay, I've got 3 internships. I should land a grad job quite simple. It was not simple at all. It took me actually 7 months to actually get my grad job. Um, I went through countless rejections, countless ACs. I had so many ACs at investment banks, at asset management companies. I think 7 or 8, which I just didn't get. Like I'll get to the final stage and just sort of fall down. And it really taught me resilience because I was used to at that point. Okay, obviously thankful due to like luck and also working hard, able to sort of get roles. So I thought I'll be able to land was what I have, but actually it sort of taught me that ability to actually know like you're actually not perfect and there's always something to learn. So I was fortunate enough to then get a role at Wellington Management. I was actually quite lucky. A recruiter reached out to me in regards to that. So my sort of background was like, you know what, they've got a role open within their team. So it's an institutional clients, fixed income. So initially started off actually working in their client analyst space, so sort of supporting clients with regards to their funds management. However, like I always say, what I do is I network. When I get in somewhere, I always try and work around and push around. So I was able to do a lot of work with products teams. So in the end, actually moved to investment products, so a bit more front office, and then What happened was that it was during lockdown. So obviously lockdown came in 2020, and I was kind of like doing long hours. And what I thought is that I thought I would enjoy asset management. However, what I realized is that, you know what, while I do understand what was happening here, I'm decent at my job. It wasn't actually using all my skill sets which I had personally. And at that point, I had also really enjoyed my time at KPMG doing consulting, and I knew strategy was sort of for me. So I was like, you know what, it's lockdown, so worst case, I was going to be at home, right? So I sort of spoke to my manager there, said, explained my sort of situation, like, you know what, I can see already that you're quite a lot, like you have quite an analytical mindset, you have quite a strong strategic thinking mindset. So gave me my blessings. I'm still my manager to this day. I'm still in touch with her. I actually catch up with her next month to catch up for like 5 years later. So she's really great person. So yeah, I actually moved into before I moved to consulting, I moved into insurance. So I spent a year at Aon. So at that time, I received a grad scheme offer from Aon while I was sort of doing all my grad scheme stuff. At that time, I accepted it, even though I already accepted another offer. I know you shouldn't do that, guys, but I was sort of like trying to hedge my bets. Hopefully, I don't get back listen right now from Aon. But yeah, so I actually, before I moved to consult, I moved to Aon for a year, working in insurance, credit and political risk, which sort of landed what I was doing at Willis Towers Watson. It was a really good time there. I learned a lot, but more importantly for me was sort of, I guess, maybe I shouldn't say it now, but kind of the truth is, it was a stepping stone to go into consulting. I need long term want to go to consulting, however, it was sort of a short term thing I can just do while I was applying for the next cycle of grad schemes. So after a year at Aon, I got an offer in from a company, a boutique strategy consultancy company, which I joined. And what I would say that was probably the best thing for me personally, rather than going to a massive company like an MBB or Big Four. Why? Because it was a boutique strategy company, I got thrown into the deep end straight away. Like in boutique companies, what you'll see is that you get a lot more responsibility early on. So after 2, 3 weeks of training, I was on projects contributing to usually 2 or 3 at a time. I work on projects, and I'll be doing a range of work from corporate strategy to go to market to product strategy to commercial due diligence. And that sort of year was just like, I guess, over a year and a half training my pivot from asset management to strategy consulting. I just knew that myself personally. I knew what my skill set was. I don't feel like it was perfectly aligned as I thought initially was to asset management. But I always tell students, right, like what you think you want to do, actually, in 5 years' time, will not be what you actually want to do. Now where I'm right now, if you asked 5 years ago, would I be doing what I'm doing right now? Probably not. But that's why I say be open minded when it comes to your I guess your career and your grad job search, because you actually don't know what you will enjoy and what you won't enjoy.
Yeah. Oh, 1,000,000%. What a great answer. I mean, you answered like 20 of our other questions in that answer, but it
Sorry
was
guys,
so good.
apologies
And
for that.
no. It's great. We love it. We love it. And we know our audience loves it as well. And especially like that pivot from AM and consulting, I imagine, I'm assuming right now, but it must have taken, must have been scary in a sense. Like, I'm going into an industry which I don't have a lot of experience in, but I'm just doing it because of my passion for it. I want to change. So when you made that kind of pivot into consulting, how did you actually approach that transition, but strategically, from actually like from a skill and career mindset? Did you kind of upskill, or did you reframe kind of your story and what you've done so far in a certain way? How did you actually do it? Because you're still in consulting now, by the way, right?
Yes, yeah. So yeah, still in strategy consulting now. Yeah. So great question, and it's a really. The reason why it's a good question is because it's a really important thing. I say anyone whether they are in their career needs to sort of be able to understand is that when it comes to sort of moving industries, is that people like people you already have in within you a lot of transferable skills when it comes to pivoting into different roles. Like I work in consulting now. I do a lot of market research. You're working in insurance right now. I'm pretty sure when it comes to what you're doing for your clients, you're doing a bit of research, right? It's a lot of transferable skills that you can pull across. And it's why I tell students all the time that in any piece of work that you do, any sort of job, there is transferable skills for what you're looking to go into. So when I was leaving asset management and insurance into consulting, I thought, okay, having an internship in KPMG, that's helpful, right? But more importantly is what skills do they look for in that industry, right? So I sat down and wrote a list of the skills that are most important. Okay, what skills here do I think I naturally have? So I tick them off. What skills have I learned from my previous roles that are transferable across for strategy consulting? I pulled it out. I actually wrote down examples. So then for my CV, when I was writing my CV, while it was sort of focused on asset management, insurance, etc., there's a lot of transferable skills where I was showing on my CV, which showed to them like, okay, he has the potential to be a good strategy consultant, which is what helped me sort of move across. And then what I always say is that when it comes to learning new skills, like you learn on the job naturally, especially when you're sort of young in your career, right? Like, you're not going to be an expert. So what they're looking for more is attitude and most importantly, ability to learn and adapt. So for me, we move into that environment, it's the ability to sort of quickly pick up the skills that I'm learning while I'm doing the work. So for me, I actually didn't think it was that hard moving across, and strategically, it was more focused on just developing a story or portraying a story of transferable skills that will be useful for the company and being a strong strategy consultant. But yeah, it's actually quite tough because from my asset management role to my grad scheme at that consulting company, I took a 25% pay cut. So at that time, it was quite like, obviously, I was a bit like, I was like, damn, I'm actually like taking a pay cut. But my thing was more like, I'm taking a pay cut to go to the industry I want to get into to learn the skills I need to then down the line earn more. And I'll probably go into it later on in your questions, but it paid off in terms of ROI anyway.
Yeah, it makes sense. That I think a lot of students forget to understand that, like, what when they're trying to actually break into the industry, they probably have like previous jobs, or maybe like, I don't know, they might have started up a podcast like us, and like, of course we do now on our CV we don't write, okay, we it's just like on the, I guess, headline, we don't say that, okay, we're just filming and recording. We say that, okay, we've networked with guests, something like that. So you have to tailor each I guess experience, and of course you do that as a student breaking into the industry, whatever that may be. But then of course if you're switching, you do that as well, don't you? But yeah, another question then. Of course, a lot of students will be like, we get LinkedIn messages as well. Some people saying that they want to go into AM. Some people they saying they want to go into consulting. What should they do? So as someone who's like worked in both, how would you compare the two? And like, if you were to do it again, what would you do?
Good question, really good question. I guess, can I break it down
Mm-hmm.
from an asset management point of view and then from a consulting point of view? I feel like they're similar but also a bit different. So from asset management, what I would say is firstly is, can you sort of demonstrate a passion for that role? So of course, like for your CV, getting great grades is important. Obviously, hopefully have a few insight days on your CV, going to the events. But more of that, outside of that, is how can you demonstrate an actual passion for asset management? So for me, it was my blog. Now, why did that blog work? Because in all my interviews I had, whether it's second year, final year, I remember my BlackRock final year one, I spent half the interview talking about he actually put up my website in the interview to talk through it. I think he did it because he wanted to basically see if I was lying or not, but he actually saw it. He's actually there, and he was quite impressed by it, and it was like, it's really good. So back to the question. So what I would say, if you're looking to break into asset management, I would say firstly is understand, okay, what are the sort of key skills I need to break in that industry in regards to not only technical but also in regards to your soft skills, right? And then from there, looking, how can I now sort of learn and demonstrate this and develop these skills in regards to my work experiences? And then secondly, in regards to the industry, how can I start networking in that industry? So are there any events I can start going to, insight days, work experience programs, etc. Get a flavor for what they actually do within the industry. And then secondly, in regards to like yourself, is how can I demonstrate a passion for that industry? How can I demonstrate on the CV? So for me, I always tell students, and I get lots and lots of messages on my TikTok and my LinkedIn in regards to asset management. I always say, first thing, like, I haven't got a company internship. How can I break in? Okay, if I look at your CV, what on it would show me that you're actually just in asset management? And for me, perfectly, I would say extracurricular is so important. Like, it shows more to you than your academics. So for that one, I said my blog, which I was writing about actual stuff happening in financial markets. Right now, the Smart Money podcast show, that is a great example of someone who's doing things outside of their academics, demonstrating interest in finance, and something that's unique as well. Because one thing as well I'd say is that they get thousands of applications which from top schools, right? But they're always actually the same. Got great grades, gone to this university, studying economics or mathematics or statistics, done an insight, they blah, blah. Okay, great. What makes you stand out? So like, either put the difference that makes you sort of stand out. And for me, that was my blog that I spoke about, which made me sort of, in my eyes, stand out from everyone else because it shows me actually doing rather than saying in regards to that. So that for asset management, I would say that's the main thing. Alongside, obviously, start learning the technical, start getting used to the industry. So sorry, one more thing. I had an interview when I graduated for a boutique asset management fixed income hedge fund, and the role was actually for someone quite experienced. I was one of 500 applicants. I still remember to this day, 'cause I still talk to the MD. We're actually quite um I say friends. He's more of like a mentor to me now. And he said that I got through to the final three. I didn't get the job, but I got through to the final three despite being a graduate because my knowledge of the industry was so superior to everyone else. I was talking to him about things happening in regards to low interest rates, how's that impacting different asset classes, the fight of capital, the equity risk premium, but more importantly, how do the different markets relate to each other, and how does recent events actually infiltrate long-term trends in regards to asset allocation across different asset classes, right? Or even within fixed income. Not to get too technical with you guys, but in interviews, I was talking about that, and he was so shocked. But it showed to him a natural interest in the industry, right, which came from my own commercial awareness of reading the news, understanding the different theme stories. So for asset management guys, I would always say that's the key thing. Now for consulting, it's a bit different in that consulting companies are a lot more different in that how they look for talent. It's like they care more about how you think rather than necessarily having certain credentials, shall I say. But obviously, having good grades and stuff is really important. But I would say what they look for is sort of can you demonstrate the sort of 3 or 4 key competencies on your CV, right? Which is firstly analytical skills, secondly is communication, third is stakeholder management, and fourth is like organizational skills. Because you're gonna have those four key skills already. That essentially is the crux of what you're gonna do within consulting. Because either going to be churning out analysis into insights, you're going to be communicating to stakeholders, you're going to be managing stakeholders, and then lastly, you're going to be balancing multiple projects. So for students in university, I have one. If I give you one piece of advice to get to consulting is consult society, 180 degrees, case competitions, so extracurriculars. Like again, same thing as asset management, right? Great grades, good, that's fine. But what makes you actually show your passion for consulting? So joining the 180 degree society at university, join the consultant society and get involved in case competitions. And again, if you do quite well in case competitions, put it on your CV. Show your actual interest in the industry. And for me personally, that's what I've seen from people who've broken in. That's how they've stood out in comparison to everyone else. So yeah, those are sort of my advice on these sort of 2 different industries.
Yeah. Oh, that was an amazing answer, Agbolade. I learned so much from that, and I know our audience will as well. And just 180 degrees, you mentioned at the end, is amazing. Like for our audience who want to get into consulting or aren't sure, that 180 degrees is an amazing organization. They're actually worldwide now. I mean, some of the people we're in contact with is in like New York and stuff. It's just amazing. 180 degrees is amazing. But also what you said about kind of like your passion. I'm a firm believer that in interviews and processes and everything else in between, even non-finance in a sense, passion trumps pride. So as you said that you know when you're so passionate about something that you can be transparent about, I don't understand this, but this is the learning I've done to try and understand it. This is my opinion that might be wrong, but I've got such a passion for the industry, I'm trying to curate this. Whereas pride, thinking that you know everything, thinking that that you're owed the role or that you deserve it. We know a few people like that, right, Noman? And I believe passion gets you further, and it's great to see that you've corroborated that, Agbolade. But that section was amazing, genuinely. It was so great. And again, it's a perfect way to move on to our next section, which is actually founding FO Perspective. So we didn't know that it was a blog before, so you've kind of touched on it a little bit. But we'll talk about the transition, of course, how it's one of the main things you do at this current moment in time, of course, and obviously as co-founder at the same time. So I want to ask, when it became what it is now, like an organization, what was the spark moment that you kind of remember made you want to start FO Perspectives?
Sure, yeah. So I guess good question. So in terms of how it is in this current format now, it was I would say 4 years ago now. So after I graduated, I initially sort of started a page on Instagram, just initially again to sort of talk about my journey into the graduate world. It started sort of great traction, and then a lot of students reach out to me, and I'll just give advice, right? Like I'm starting, so I'm not a veteran in this space. I don't know, I'm not the be all and end all. I was giving advice, I was supporting students, and then I started then doing CV help. So people ask for help with their CVs. So I started helping with their CVs. So at university, a lot of my friends as well, I would help with their CVs as well in regards to doing it for them when it came to their applications, right? So I knew I was quite good at doing CVs. And then what's happened with them was that I was doing a few CVs, people then refer their friends. And then from doing like 5 or 6 CVs, I was starting to do 30, 40, 50 CVs. And I guess, and people actually now landing jobs. So I get back to say, oh, I landed this interview, or I landed this job, or they'll ask for resources in regards to how can I prep for my consulting interview. I send them resources, I jump on a call. Initially it was free, and then before I started making it paid and regards to turn it into a service. And that sort of just blew. And then obviously I sort of turned the page into that sort of CV help, ETC. But then what I realized was that, okay, I actually enjoy helping people with sort of land jobs, but more importantly, like I want to do it at a macro scale. So what I'm doing now probably isn't feasible, and also I don't think it's the right way to do it. In regards to, I think one of my things I do, and you probably see on my website, is that I don't think you should be charging students for resources. That aspect should be free. So I kind of moved away from that model into okay, how can I actually help students on a larger scale? For me personally, that was okay, not just sort of doing like CV advice, career advice on my page, but more actually where are students based? Universities. Let me start going to universities and actually start talking to students, run workshops, sort of help them when it comes towards their journey. So I reached out to a few universities. My first one was Nottingham University, my old university, and I said, that's what we do. We look to help students sort of land jobs, carry their workshop. It was actually with the Nest Societies. So that was my first ever workshop I did. Had 220 students there, quite daunting. I was like first in a workshop, and then but they loved it. It was great, and that sort of was like I think that just lit a fire within me. Like, you know what, I love like running workshops, supporting students, helping them when it comes to that application season. And then what turned from one actually turned into across that September to November period. I did around 15 workshops at university. So also went to Birmingham University, went down to Surrey, went up to Durham, Manchester University, just running it with different societies from your sort of finance, economic societies through to your consulting ones, through to your ACSs. But yeah, and then it just sort of blew, it just sort of then that exploded. I got a lot more, I guess, traction, page started to grow, so I started to grow, community started to grow, and it got to a point where I was like, you know what, I actually really love what I do here, and I really enjoy every time hearing students hearing they land jobs, it's just great. So then, but what I didn't realize was that okay, I'm helping students land jobs, right? But then that's not enough. How can I then bring employers to the students? Because you sort of see there's two sides to the equation. There's the students applying for roles, and there's employers providing the roles. So I thought that there's only so far you can go in helping students apply for roles. How can I now bring the employers to these students to show them where the talent is, right? So I thought, okay, B2B, start working with employers as well. And that's what sort of really kickstarted what it's been over the last year in terms of being not just the early careers for students, but also more importantly, being a talent attraction consultancy to help employers actually tap into that talent pool you've got right there. And that's where essentially FS Perspective is today.
Wow, amazing. I mean, I guess like each step towards the growth that you've underwent in the last couple of years must have been rewarding in itself, and especially when you're building those connections. But I guess on the whole connections, then when you were building these connections with your students, but then employers, how did you do that? And like, is there any tips on that maybe?
Sure. So I guess with students, so building a community of students, that's all organic. So one thing I've never done is like use paid ads or like use people to do it. Like everything is just joined organically. Um, and I feel like that's testament not only to me but also to people that work with me. So I have two people that sort of help out as well, Farida and David. Shout out to them. They help a lot with sort of like the socials. I feel like I just naturally wanted to give and like just provide value to students and graduates because I've been through it. And I thought what you see here is that when you actually just give authentic advice and support, you just sort of naturally just grew. And I love talking to students, right? I actually feel like it's one of my, it's daunting, but it's also quite fun because firstly, I see myself there, but also what I see as well is like just that sort of ambition, that eagerness, that enjoyment that you see from them looking to kids as a career. So on that aspect, yeah, to be perfectly honest, that's just like organic and will continue to be organic. I would say in sort of growing that community. If you want to sort of want to join, they can join. As I said before, all our resources are free. All our workshops, our insight sessions are all free for students. So there's no financial obligation to do when it comes to working with us, right? And then with employers, that was quite hard, I'll be perfectly honest, because I actually said no. I worked in asset management. I worked in consulting. I've never in my life worked in talent acquisition. Like it's a whole new world to me. But I'm the kind of person where I feel like I like taking risks. Like I took a risk in terms of leaving my job, asset management job to go into consulting during lockdown. Took a risk in pivoting industries. I feel like what's the worst that can happen, right? I mean, yeah, I'm quite risk taken. So I thought, let me just move into world of TA and see what I can do. So when I first started, I didn't know what I was doing. So I wasn't messaging random talent acquisition people on LinkedIn. No real strategy, a lot of rejection. So I thought, okay, let me actually have a proper strategy on how to reach out to them. So I started going to networking events and started talking to them directly face to face because over email you can kind of get lost and also over LinkedIn. And then what I saw had a lot more traction talking to them face to face was able to sort of land our first client in Beasley. Initially, actually, was sort of a trial basis, just to say, you know what, let me show you what we can do in supporting you. From there, got a lot of learnings, a lot of development, and yeah, from there, I was able to sort of to start to develop relationship with clients. I think talk about transferable skills in consulting. I work with like project stakeholders quite regular and CC people quite regularly, so it was easy to sort of like manage stakeholder relationships in that regards and to knowing how to manage the cadence conversations, the flow, how to sort of drive things, etc. But actually building that relationship stuff was still quite new in that whole new era. But yeah, since then we started to grow. So we currently now recently signed Barclays. as a client. So we're helping them with the whole early careers attraction across spring weeks, internships, and graduate schemes across the country. So if you're a student now, first year, second year, third year, just reach out to us. We've got roles for you guys to make you apply for. And we're actually running a program for students in August, a sort of application season boot camp to prepare them for applications, which is again sponsored by them, completely free. But yeah, that's sort of like how it got to that point in sort of working with them. It's new, it was tough, but like I said, I've learned a lot and I like learning. So it's been a good experience to learn how to work with employers.
Yeah, 100%. And you must be so proud of how far you've come. Not just obviously the career alone is enough, but then obviously building it for perspective. Not a lot of people think like it's crazy what social media has done to our mindsets, right? People think, oh, entrepreneurship means you can just just chill, you work whenever you want. But 99% of the time, entrepreneurship takes more time than it does the actual career. You'll be doing longer than 40-hour weeks, I assure you. And I mean, Agbolade, I'm sure you could agree, right?
Yeah, I've probably spent more hours working now than I did working in consulting, and like just I've done like weeks on end of back to back 12 hours shifts at work, and
Wow.
this is, and also I would say here of entrepreneurship is that there's no sort of like, it's on you when you're working in a company, right? There's a structure, there's people who are accountable, there's always someone to like rely back on. Here it's like it's you or no one else. If you don't do the work right, nothing gets moved forward. But that's also for me what I really enjoy as well in that regards. But yeah, it is tough, and your point in regards to sort of like people think it's quite easy. I think with like social media and TikTok, where things can go viral, people think it's a sort of like it grows overnight, and you can just suddenly sort of like grow something. I've been doing this for like 3 years while working initially, growing it bit by bit to the point now where I've now gone sort of full time with it, and even now like I'm growing, but like I'm not there yet, and I'm still learning. But for me, I rather have slow, consistent growth where I'm learning rather than that sort of rise to fame, don't know what I'm doing, and then sort of crash. So for me, yeah, just enjoying the journey of entrepreneurship. And most importantly, the purpose, right? Is I like helping students sort of like kickstart their career, giving out support. And as long as I'm helping students do that, in my eyes, I'm doing making an impact. I'm enjoying what I'm doing.
Hmm. No, for sure, 100%. And also kind of what you said a couple of answers ago, or maybe one answer ago, about like there's no financial obligation. You try and you do make everything pretty free, and it's like for me, that's where our values are as organizations are super aligned. I mean, we've done events and stuff before just because we really like to be face to face with our audience, and we had people recommend to us that like you're getting good turnouts, you could charge for this because you're doing a presentation, a workshop, all this stuff. Well, like that never even crossed our mind because again. First of all, we're students. It doesn't make sense for us to charge. And second of all, we're just trying to, pass on our passion. And we don't teach anything. We just pass on the messages from guests like yourself in a face-to-face format. And it's just that we never charge for anything. I don't think we ever will, right? Just because it's the passion that trumps it. But I am going on to a question, I assure you. But I wanted to ask... how do you ensure, and that's a bit of a loaded question, but when it comes to effort perspectives, you're working with employers, you're working with students, how do you ensure that FO stays grounded in student needs and not just employer agendas?
So really, that's a loaded question. I have to be quite political with the answer. I'm joking. No, no, it's actually something and this is actually a coincidence. So 2 months ago, and I actually posted about this on LinkedIn, so there's evidence is there. So like a month ago, I put a post about opening my diary to students. To book in like free 20-minute calls. Just to talk about anything. Actually, Richard booked in one of those calls, which I think might have helped with this. But I said, my diary's open. If you're a student, book in some time, 20-minute call, talk about anything you want, whether it's CV, help, careers, advice, anything. The reason why I did that was because when I was focusing so much on like outreach to employers to try and build relationships, to try and win clients, I felt like I started to neglect a bit about the student community. I wasn't posting much in our community as much as I used to be, wasn't as active on social for our content. And I was like, you know what, like at the end of the day, right, I'm doing this for them. And I felt like it was important to make sure that I actually remember like who this is for, but more importantly, what do they actually need, right? Because that's what's most important. So doing that helped me sort of realign that actually here's what I'm doing it for, here's what students are struggling with. And for me, how I'm able to sort of balance that student needs with employer agenda is firstly just being transparent in terms of understanding what do both need, right? Because usually there's some sort of compromise in the middle, right? So when I speak to students that understand what they need, I think to employers that understand what I need, I can now see both sides of the equation. And then here's what my value is working out a solution that fits both. So let me give you an example to make it honest, right? So students feel like sometimes one thing I hear from a lot of students is they're not sure. Okay, let me give you two examples. One, like what does this role actually entail? What's the actual daily life of this role? You hear about it online, but you don't actually know what it really entails. And number two, they're not sort of sure how to navigate companies' application process. And then on the employer side, a lot of them saying, okay, or some of them might say is we're getting applications, but we're not getting high quality enough applications. So how do we get more high quality applications? How can I help them give them that? So then my thing is, okay, employers want more high quality applications. Students are struggling to understand how to navigate your process. How can we now make that easier for both of you? Our solution to that was having a pre-application webinar. For one of our clients, what we did was that we actually hosted a webinar for them with the recruitment team and for students to be like cool. And on that webinar, essentially the recruitment team will talk through Q5. We had actual consultants who had gone through the process last year on to talk about how they actually found the process, how they navigated it. The recruitment team then also spoke about what best advice is to make sure you do well. So what was the outcome of that? The students now knew what that company's recruitment process was like, how to actually put their best foot forward, what the companies are looking for. So now they were able to do better quality applications. So now our employers now had better, higher quality applications tailored towards their needs, right? So that's my sort of thing in that a lot of the time, the two different areas actually quite align. It's just finding how to align them both to each other. So yeah, it was hard at first, but when you realize that actually let's listen to both people, both sides, work out what they need and find a solution to it. And it's sort of all right in that regards.
Yeah, no, and that makes complete sense because at the end of the day, like if you're applying for spring, like a company's not taking you on just for the sake of it. They're seeing potential for someone who's going to be maybe like a convert to a summer analyst or and then a grad scheme after that. So it's like an investment they're making. So of course they want high quality, and then as students, it's just as you said, align in a way as well, because of course students want to have long careers at strong firms. So yeah, it makes complete sense. But I think this is a nice time to move on to the next section. We're on the penultimate section of this episode. So just some advice for students now. Another broad question then. So what makes a student stand out in an internship or graduate role in application?
Great question. So I think I'll give what my employer clients look for. I think that'll be best, and then I'll see what I think might help. So from employer clients, I think what they look for firstly is like obviously well-roundedness. I think people actually overlook what they mean by well-roundedness. So their thing is academics plus the personality and passion, right? So of course, we want to have good academics, but firstly, can I see your actual passion for this role? And secondly, are you well-rounded as a person, right? Because they just don't want robots who are just that's like smart people but don't have much to them, right? Because what people forget is that when it comes to your career, a lot of it's a lot about the soft, intangible stuff rather than the actual output, the relationship building, etc. So when they're looking at ideal clients, right, the few things they're looking for is okay, can I see a clear passion for this industry? Can I see someone who's also got strong academics, etc. Or firstly, is there something about them? Have they got a personality? What makes them sort of stand out? And that's things such as like your extracurriculars. It could be, do you play a certain sport, or are you a musician, or do you run your own sort of business on the side, or are you taking part in something quite unique? So that sort of like well-rounded aspect is quite important, I would say, when it comes to students looking to apply for your roles. Make sure you demonstrate that on your CV. Another area I'd say advice on my side is less about your CV, but more in regards to the actual process is mindset. And I say this is so important. And in the students I've directly coached one to one, but in general, is that like everything flows from your mindset and how you approach application season. Because it's firstly, it's a marathon, not a sprint. So when when you get yourself in the mindset of it being a marathon, right, in terms of I'm starting now in September, it may take 6, 7 months to get to that final goal. So that means don't be too despondent when you get those rejections, right? It's a stepping stone. So what I'd say is get your mindset in the right place in regards to knowing it's a marathon, and then start early. I can't overestimate how important starting early to prepare yourself is in regard to my view. I told my friends this and everyone is that but when September comes around, you should be ready to start applying. You should have your cover letters ready, your CVs ready, everything. You know who you're applying to. You've got a tracker ready. Start applying. Because the earlier you start, the better, the more chances you have in regards to succeeding. So what I would say is this July, this August, start preparing yourself for upcoming season. Get your CV ready, get your cover letter ready. Start like you're doing right now, Noman. Start doing interview prep now. so important for finance and consulting is you don't want to get an interview and then start preparing for that technical thing, because I promise you, you're not learning that ag technicals in under a week. Say for case studies, right? You don't want to start doing case studies when you got 5 days to the interview. Start doing it now. Start preparing as if you knew you're going to get that interview. So when it comes down, when it now comes round, you're in a good place. So again, back to preparation for me is probably actually the most important thing I would say take away from this conversation is prepare early, set yourself up for success in regards to succeeding in it, and that starts from mindset.
Hmm. Yeah, no, 100%. And we're not going to spend too much time on the section because, yeah, I mean, advice for students has been drip fed into all of the answers you've been given, and it's been amazing. But just a couple more questions on this section. To be honest, I did just lie there, to be perfectly honest. But yeah, a couple more questions on this section. I wanted to ask you, Agbolade, you've had such a varied career. You said you've had a couple of mentors. You'll catch up with your manager next month. That you've known for 5+ years and everything else in between. So, do you remember, and do you regularly kind of touch on and recall kind of the best piece of career advice you've ever received?
Yeah, I actually know what it is, and it's actually something that I think applies to everyone. And it's from my last person manager I worked with. Really, really smart guy. He's obviously quite private, so I'm not going into it, but he used to work at McKinsey up to junior partner level, so he's done quite well for himself. And I working with him, I could see it when he told me, but it's in terms of like never stop learning. I think the key thing to him is making sure wherever you are in your life that it's always having that sort of learning mindset. And what I mean by that is when it like in your career, they will get to points where naturally, okay, you'll be good at a certain role, you'll be good at a certain task. But in terms of people that sort of continue to succeed and continuously sort of rise and grow in their career, is that mindset of continuing to learn new things, but also not even your current role, but outside of that. And that's what's really helped me in my career so far to date. I think get to the point where I am now is that ability to just in any scenario you're in, what can you learn from that? Whether it's technical, whether it's soft skills, etc. So yeah, I'd say this ability to continue learning.
Wow, perfect. That's some straight gold advice for us and our views, isn't it, Ali? But anyways, I'm going to finish off this section with one last question. So now we know the traditional route for a lot of these finance roles is your spring week, your summer internship, and then hopefully the gradual after. But do you think there are any alternative routes that students can take, or do you see any change coming in that space?
Good question. So I don't think that method will change as much. I think what will change is more how companies recruit for each section, how they approach the recruitment. Companies are moving away from that sort of whole CV focus to more of a skills based approach to recruitment. So it's focusing more on what skills do you have rather than necessarily what's your background. Because I guess with CVs, and I understand why people have CVs and what they're used for, but I have one gripe with CVs that they're very much they don't show you the full picture of someone, and they can be very prone and biased to privileges. So, because if we're able to have gone to I've had privilege in my life in regards to going to a private school that's allowed me to do certain experiences. I've not got on my CV as a first year student. A lot of people won't have that, but that doesn't mean I'm better than them. I just had the opportunity to do that. So and that's something I tell my clients as well when it comes to how they hire and recruit is look at your hiring practices and trying your biases you've got there in regards to finding that talent. And what I would say is if your hiring practices don't actually align to finding the skills for that role, then you're there's no one you're not attracting that underrepresented talent because you're not looking for them in how you're hiring. So the approach of spring week intern grad scheme won't change that much. I think what we're seeing as well though is students are becoming a lot more proactive. So they're creating their own work experiences or they're creating their own sort of pathways through entrepreneurship, which will help them a lot. But what we're seeing more of companies is that they're finding more avenues to attract diverse talent and also making their selection roles a lot less biased. So, good example, you've got a lot of Black Heritage Insight Days or Women in Finance Insight Days or Spring Weeks, things that companies are doing outside of Spring Weeks, internship graduate schemes to open up their world or open up their talent pipeline to more underrepresented talent. So I would say that's more the shift we're seeing is towards skills based hiring and opening more avenues into the industry.
Hmm. Yeah, amazing. And what a way to end off that section. I know we've been asking in this latter half of the episode, we're asking a few loaded and tougher questions, and your responses have been amazing. But it's the final question is bittersweet. It's the final section, sorry, of the episode, and it's three questions we ask to every guest we have on, and it comes under the banner and the umbrella of looking back because we think it's important to reflect, and it pivots its way into advice amazingly for our audience and listeners at the same time as well. So I'm gonna kick off the first of this trio of questions. Looking back on your career journey, what are you most proud of?
Ooh, good question. Um, I'd probably say I'm most proud of taking risks. I could have quite comfortably said like Wellington Management. I could have not like pivoted. I could have also like on my journey to actually breaking into Wellington Management, that sort of 7 months post graduation, I actually got grad scheme offers from other companies, but they weren't in roles that I wanted to go for. I said I wanted to get into asset management. I want to make sure I get into that. So like I turned down grad scheme offers because I knew that I wanted to get into it, and it got. I was getting like to a point I was quite pressured. I wasn't sure I was going to like trying to take these offers. But yeah, I think just being like taking that risk and sort of just backing myself has been quite helpful today in terms of my career journey. I would say, yeah. So taking risks is obviously my biggest
Yeah.
what I'm most proud about.
Yeah, I mean that anecdote in itself, when you went from the like, I guess in a sense that stability to taking that risk and jumping for like your careers is something that I really respect, and the fact that you successfully did so is something that will be very inspiring for us and our viewers. But penultimate question of the episode then: if you could give your younger self one piece of advice, what would that be?
It's a really, really good question, making me reflect here a bit. I'll probably say the biggest piece of advice I would say is consistency. This is personal to me, but also I think it's probably personal to a lot of people there in like the work I was doing. So at times, I wouldn't say I was always the most consistent in my summer internship graduate church or in my roles, being consistent in terms of the quality of work I was doing and making sure I was showing up every day. I think I've learned quite quick. I learned quite quickly, but showing up, especially in these sort of roles we're looking to talk about here, finance and consulting, is that like it's not a role where you can be good 80% of the time. Like you need to be consistently at like 99, 100% mark, and that consistency in what that you do is really important because one thing that really matters and it's kind of taught me today is reputation. And when you're sort of junior, reputation comes from the work that you do. That's how you build your brand reputation. And it's what I say is once people got reputation of you or impression of you, is very hard to change it. So working hard to make sure that you're consistent in everything you do to sort of maintain that sort of strong brand and reputation will help you go so far in your career. So for myself, I'd probably say being more consistent in certain areas of my life in terms of my career. But yeah, um, you live and you learn.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, 100%.
yeah, wow. And but I mean, even for the podcast itself, it's like there were times, especially when we had our had the, I guess, coerce rebrand. It was like, is there a point in staying consistent and moving forward whilst all of our effort that we did before that got wiped? But
But it didn't. The
yeah, it didn't.
community was still there,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
and when we realized that,
Yeah.
just pushing forward it's I think a very very strong quality people should have. And okay, last question of the episode then. So, like, how should I word this? Okay, so now that we've gone through your career journey, we spoke about FNO as well. So FO perspectives. Now, what's the biggest takeaway you want that our audience, our listeners and viewers would get from your story?
Um, Good question. I think it's just back yourself. And just back yourself in anything that you do. And it links back to mindset, right? Back yourself when it comes to the roles you want to apply for, and that you're good enough to get them. So I feel like that's that mindset of backing yourself will lead into your actions. Back yourself when it comes to your grad job search. Back yourself when you're actually in your first grad job, but when it comes to the imposter syndrome that you're good enough for this place. Back yourself if you want to switch careers. Back yourself in everything that you do. I would say like you're your first like supporter for anyone else. So if you're not backing, you can't back yourself. Why would anyone else back you? So like, and just some big specifically towards like students and graduates into their career journey is, if you want to go into IB, back yourself. Do the work you need to take to get into it. If you want to get into asset management, back yourself. Doesn't matter if you don't go to a Russell Group or you're going to go to an Oxbridge and stuff, right? If you think you're good enough, you are good enough. Then you have to do the work that you need to get there. So yeah, just back yourself in everything that you do, and that will, and more often than not, if you back yourself and you do it for long enough, not to go a bit off topic, but someone called Alex Hormozy, who I listen to quite a lot. He's someone I really like, and he speaks about like backing yourself, and also like if you do it enough times of a long period of time, like something will make way for you. You'll make progress. So if you're resilient and you back yourself with just that, like you will get to where you want to get to in the end. Might not get there straight away. It might take 3-4 years down the line, but you'll get there. So yeah, just back yourself.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And what a way to end the episode. I mean, Agbolade, it's been such a pleasure to chat to you. We covered so many facets of the industry, of life, of entrepreneurship, of career, and of everything else in between. I mean, we could probably talk for another couple of hours, but obviously in the interest of your time, and of course just making sure that we cover the most pertinent points, which I think we have, and we really appreciate you joining us on the Smart Money Show. And of course you just add to our what's the word I'm looking for? Blossoming portfolio of professionals and people who really strive to put themselves out there and be the best of the best, which you are, of course, one of them, as you showcased on the show. But for our listeners and viewers of the podcast, we really do hope you loved that episode as much as me and Noman did. And if you are watching us on YouTube, but for some reason you aren't subscribed, then surely Agbolade has given you one hell of a reason to subscribe and stay tuned for future episodes of the Smart Money Show. And of course, likewise goes for yourselves on the audio platforms. You can drop a comment on either platform. You can give us a rating on audio platforms, and of course give us a follow there as well. And please do show some love and engagement on our social media platforms at the same time. We post some events that we're planning, opportunities to join the team at the Smart Money Show, and of course some partnerships that will be launching actually sooner than you might think. But as always, please do join us next week for another episode of the Smart Money Show with yet another professional guest. But see you then, take care, and thank you very much for watching.